Today, we're continuing our series of interviews with Virginia candidates. I'm thrilled to be talking with Caitlin Coakley. She's challenging a 23-year incumbent and running for House District 65. Welcome to You Can't Beat Blue, Caitlin. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you for inviting me, Mary. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Well, I've read that your first experience in politics was actually as a reporter for a weekly newspaper. So what prompted you to jump into a race against a 23-year incumbent?
You know, my story, like so many stories about people getting into politics, it starts with never expecting to get into politics. I never really expected to run for office. I thought, maybe I'll keep working on campaigns or what have you. But when the COVID-19 crisis hit, I saw the chaos that everybody was plunged into all of a sudden. And yet we still came together and we were part of one of the biggest protest movement in United States history, which of course was the Black Lives Matter protest in the wake of George Floyd's death last year. And at the end of it, I was just left with this feeling that this district deserves representation that works as hard as we have and as we do every single day, taking care of our kids, getting our jobs done, being involved in our community, and just making sure that things are functioning. It's time to have someone who works as hard as we do. And during the campaign trail, I have talked to so many people in this district who say they have, they've sent emails or they've reached out to Delegate Ware's office and never heard back, or they requested a meeting and they were turned down. At the end of it, it just felt like we're in a crisis. Our leadership is not leading. And so, you know what? It's time to mount a challenge and remind him he works for us. We've had thousands of conversations with voters, knocked over 1,000 doors, and we have a full-scale campaign going, and people are excited. I've had a couple people who tell me that they're voting Democrat for the first time to vote for me because I showed up for them, because I talked to them about the issues that are important to them that they haven't been able to get any traction with, and it just became this movement that I feel so blessed to be a part of.
Tell us about District 65. Paint us a picture. What does District 65, House District 65 look like?
You've got everything from wealthy suburbanites over here to, very, very poor rural areas there, and then kind of a mix in between. And so I talked to voters in Goochland and Powhatan, and they're saying we need broadband. They're saying we need more protections for our drinking water because we're all on well water, and some of the proposed developments are threatening our water supply. And then in Chesterfield, people are concerned about traffic and infrastructure and things like that. Here in Chesterfield, we're building up really fast. In other areas, they're very concerned about that development sort of spreading. And the challenge to me is to build a coalition among all of those people. And to me, that just boils down to bringing everything back to our shared values. We're all families. We're all working hard. We all want the same things. We want a good education for our children. We want housing that is affordable. We want our infrastructure to be invested in, all of these things, and just bringing it back to those shared values.
How are you uniquely prepared to serve as the delegate for your district?
My entire adult professional life, the foundation of it is the idea that the most important thing I can do is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. Obviously, government works slowly sometimes, but the things that I'm prepared to get to work on day one are things like expanding our protections for private water supply, because I have had the pleasure of speaking to so many environmental advocates in Powhatan and in Goochland who are very concerned about the quality of their well water, and what accountability measures are in place for developments that might threaten the quality of their water. I'm ready to get to work immediately on making sure that we're getting to that $15 an hour minimum wage in a way that is fast enough that it can bring some relief to working people, but also won't, just devour our small businesses, which, even though small businesses are not the primary beneficiary of depressed wages, it's the big box stores source, it's the corporations. But the small businesses, if they do have an increase in their labor costs, it is going to be problematic for them. So we need to do it in such a way that the market has time to stabilize in between hikes. But then at that point, I want to tie any future increases to the cost of living so that there is a set formula that we can go back to instead of it just leaving it up to discretion and allowing it to become a political football that gets kicked around while people are still working for poverty wages. I'm ready to just always be a voice for families like mine. I grew up working class here in Chesterfield County. My dad works in restaurants. My mom was a teacher's aide at one of the public schools. My husband has a small contracting business out of here, and I've been a freelance writer for a lot of my life. I mean, we're a working class family who live here in Chesterfield. I have the ideology and a vision that I want to improve lives for other working families in this Commonwealth.
So this work, I mean, it's got to be exhausting. It's got to be overwhelming, win or lose, you're pushing forward. What propels you forward? Who inspires you? What inspires you? What keeps you going?
The people who have to live and work under the laws that are passed at the General Assembly, in some ways that lived experience gives us more perspective into how effective certain laws will be, what sort of adverse effects or detrimental effects there will be to certain laws, how they will be applied, whether they will be applied equally or have a disproportionate impact on certain communities and things like that. It reminds me that my whole goal coming into this race from day one is I said I want to leave this district better for my having run than it was before I declared my candidacy. And so every day that is what I'm trying to do.
Well, thank you for running. I'm grateful for you. I don't even live in Virginia. I'm grateful for you. Let's talk about where people can find you online. Your website is Coakley for Delegate, COAKLEYFOR Delegate. Facebook is the same, Instagram the same, Twitter is Coakley for HD65. And if all else fails, you can go to the website, Coakley for Delegate, and you can find everything there. Caitlin, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. I appreciate you so much, and I'm grateful for what you're doing.
Thank you, Mary. I really appreciate you having me in this space and getting a chance to talk about what we're doing. And I think we're going to surprise a lot of people this year. So it's something to keep an eye out for.